Alright, 7.3 is simplifying radical expressions, and I just went ahead here and wrote all of your radical and exponent rules. Exponent rules, we went over those a little bit in the previous example, and then radical rules, we went over, or we're going to go over those today, and we're going to go ahead and use them. So again, you could pause the video and you could write them out. So let's go ahead and simplify. So the first example here is simplify the square root of 3 times the square root of 5. So you're going to go up to your radical rules. You're going to look for the one that looks most like that. So that's this one here. You have two radicals that are being multiplied, and what happens? You could keep the same indices and you multiply their insides. So in this case, you would get the indice would be 2, and you would get 3 times 5 on the inside, which is the square root of 15. And if you needed to, you could simplify that, but there are no groupings of 2 inside there. So you're done. Alright, then the next one, you're using the same property. You're going to go ahead and multiply their insides. So 2 over a, even though they're fractions, you could still do that. And b over 3, that becomes 2b over 3a. Now soon we'll learn that you can't have a radical in the denominator, but for this section we're going to keep it like this, and then in 7.5 we'll go ahead and learn how to rationalize the denominator. Alright, next one, C. You have a radical over a radical, and what we're going to be using in this case is this rule right here. We're going to go ahead and split it up over top over bottom. So this is what it's going to look like. And then we're going to go ahead and simplify that. So let's think about that. We're looking for groupings of 3, right? So what 3 numbers, when you multiply it by itself, does it give you 8? That's 2. So that's going to be 2. And again, you could do the tree here, but these are small numbers that you should be able to think of these. So what 3 numbers, when you multiply it by itself, does it give you 27? That's going to be 3, so your answer would be 2 over 3. Alright, so these are your answers for the first one. Now, something that I was talking about is, for example, I just talked about 2 to the 3, that's 8, and then 3 to the 3rd power, that's 27. So that's something that you could memorize. You probably want to memorize all of these, I would say up to the 12th, and then you probably want to memorize all of these as well. And then you're just going to be able to do these problems a lot quicker. So if you need to do note cards or something, you could do anything you need to do to be able to memorize them. And again, these problems are going to be easier for you. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and use the product and quotient rule to simplify. Okay, so in this case, if we go up to the product and quotient rule, this is the product right here. And then this is the quotient rule. So basically multiplying and separating them out or putting them together, and same thing for division. So we're going to go ahead and simplify this. So you could rewrite this as the square root of 25 times the square root of x to the 3. And I know that the square root of 25, that's 5. But then I need to simplify the square root of x to the 3rd. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on the side here. And that I could write it as x times x times x. So remember, there's an indice 2 here, so we're looking for groupings of 2. So those come outside of the radical as just 1, not 2. And then what's here, what's left over, is inside. Okay, so that's what your answer that's what this simplifies to. So this is 5x times square root of x. And that would be your answer. Alright, so next we have 54 x to the 6th and then y to the 8th. So 54, we could rewrite that. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little. We could rewrite that as 2 times 27. And then 27, we just did that, right? Up here, we know 27 to the third power, that's 3. Right, so this is going to be 3 to the third, or if you want to, since you're doing a tree here, you could write it as 3 times 3 times 3. So we know to circle these, because that's our group of 3, that's going to go outside of the radical. I'm going to write it over here. And I have this 2 that's left inside the radical. Now I'm going to deal with the x's and the y's. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then y's I have 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're going to do groupings of 3, remember? So here's a group of 3. Here's a group of 3. Here's a group of 3. Here's a group of 3, and then these are left over. So remember, our leftovers go inside, y squared, and our groupings go outside, but you take it as a whole group. So we have two groups of x, so that's going to be x and x, and 2 groups of y, so that's going to be y and y. X times x, you could rewrite that as 3x squared, and y times y, you could rewrite that as y squared. And so this would be your answer. Alright, so next we have square root of 20 over square root of 5. So we actually probably want to combine those, because if you notice 20 and 5, if you do 20 divided by 5, you get 4. So we could actually combine it underneath one roof or one radical. Oops. And that's going to give you 20 divided by 5 is 4, and square root of 4 is 2. Okay, and so for me, I was able to quickly look at that and just be able to use my rules, but for you, you might have to go back and look at your rules. Okay, this one, let's try the same idea. So let's try to split it up together. So 50x divided by 2, and then that 2 that's on the outside, that has to stay on the outside. So it's going to stay as a 1/2 because it's in the denominator, and you have a 1 here. Okay, so 50 divided by 2, that's 25, so 1/2 square root of 25x, and then we could split this up. So 1/2 square root of 25 times square root of x. Now what's the square root of 25? Yep, 5. And you just have x here. So I'm just going to clean up this fraction to be 5 over 2. And that would be your answer. Alright, so I quickly just want to go over these rules again. So the product rule and the quotient rule, those are going to be one of the most common ones we're going to use in this class. And then also we're using this one a lot too, which is our rational to radical. And so those are the 3 that you're probably going to want to memorize these.